For more on the story, I'm joined by Andrew Hilliar from our International Affairs desk. Andrew, first of all, Security Council mandating the use of force or authorizing the use of force is pretty rare, but this draft now seems to have been a little bit watered down. What's really in that final text, possibly?
Yeah, well, I mean, just looking at the initial draft resolution, it used much stronger language, which meant, of course, that it was far more likely to come up against a veto from one of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council. As you can see on your screen there, it would have authorized states to use all necessary means, which in UN language, of course, means military action. Now, that came up inevitably against Chinese, Russian, and even French opposition. So the watered-down text, which you can see on your screen there, would authorize states to use all defensive means necessary. A key change there. All defensive means necessary and commensurate with the circumstances in the Strait of Hormuz. Now, it's worth reminding viewers at this point that under international law, attacks on ships flying neutral flags are forbidden during armed conflict. And the UN's Convention on the Law of the Sea also establishes freedom of navigation as a fundamental principle of international law. Now, this draft resolution seeks legal cover for operations in the Strait of Hormuz by giving them legal clout with a UN Security Council mandate. Essentially, the new resolution the draft resolution no longer explicitly invokes Chapter 7 of the UN Charter, which allows the Security Council to use force to restore peace. And the big change there, as I pointed out, that emphasis on the use of the defensive nature of any intervention, a change possibly aimed at alleviating French concerns.
And do we think that this change in the words used in the resolution will be enough to avoid vetoes from the French or other countries?
Well, it could very well be the case. If we just look at what Russia, China and France had been saying leading up to this moment, well, Russia's UN ambassador has been saying time and time again that the only solution would be an end to hostilities. China's position, very closely aligned with Russia, saying the use of force would lead to an escalation. And we have heard from French President Emmanuel Macron recently making clear that he opposes the use of force to clear the Strait of Hormuz. But France's UN ambassador has hinted and suggested that the new draft, with its defensive language, with its use of defensive wording, may be acceptable. Now, of course, we won't know until the actual vote takes place. It is expected to take place on Saturday. There are, however, reports that Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince, Mohammed bin Salman, has spoken with Russian President Vladimir Putin and with Chinese officials, and it's expected that they're not going to block this resolution. However, again, we will have to wait until Saturday to see what actually does happen.
And on Thursday, Hormuz was also at the center of another initiative, this time led by the UK, with 40 countries discussing ways to reopen that Strait of Hormuz. Anything come out of that meeting?
Well, this was a virtual meeting of foreign ministers from 40 countries hosted by the UK. No real breakthroughs here. There was a statement, as you can see on your screen there, from Yvette Cooper, British Foreign Minister, accusing Iran of holding the global economy hostage in the Strait of Hormuz. There was further agreements to hold over the next few weeks meetings with military planners to discuss ways to ensure security for shipping after the end of the war. I think one of the main objectives of this meeting was really for European allies to try and show the Trump administration that they are prepared to step up to do more for their own security. Of course, you'll remember that Donald Trump has lashed out repeatedly at his European allies for not doing more to clear the strait. He repeated on Wednesday telling them to go and get their own oil. Donald Trump is essentially saying that NATO allies should lead the way by sending warships to the Strait of Hormuz. Europe is essentially saying through this meeting that it's up for policing the strait, but only after the war ends. So steering clear of hard military promises at this stage, Kedavan.
Andrew Hilliar, thank you very much for your analysis.